Welcome. We're honored to have you listen and participate in these dialogues produced by the Cora de Brazza Foundation. To learn more about the Foundation and about how you can help us in our mission of unearthing untold stories of moral energy, please visit us at virtuesofpeace.com. There you can access show archives, show resources, visit our Etsy shop, and support us with a donation. virtuesofpeace.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Virtues of Peace. My name is Hope Elizabeth May, and I'm joined by Randy Olson.
Hello, it's good to be here.
And we're joined by a very, very special guest, all the way from Ardoyne, Belfast, Northern Ireland, Kevin McArevey. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you very much for having me on. It's an honor.
It is such an honor to have you here, to have you spend your time with us. And if you don't know, Kevin is the subject of an award winning documentary called Young Plato that came out in 2022. And that documentary focuses on Kevin's, what he calls philosophical odyssey, in implementing what we'll talk about. The term is philosophical inquiry, but philosophy not only at Holy Cross Boys School, but in the community of Ardoyne. It's just an incredible documentary. We'll have a link to it on our show resources page. It's a must see. I teach philosophy at Central Michigan University, and I teach a class called Ancient Greek Philosophy. And since the film has come out, I've had the students watch it. And that's how I learned about Kevin. And we'll be talking about his story as well as the method, philosophical inquiry, that he's using. The title of this show is Kevin McArevey and the Healing Power of Philosophical Inquiry, because Kevin is definitely using philosophy as a kind of therapy and healing. The boys at Holy Cross Boys and their families and the community. It's just amazing. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to a former student and friend, current friend, Lauren Marshall, who in November visited Kevin at Holy Cross Boys with her father. And when I learned that Lauren was going to Belfast, I immediately thought of Kevin and Holy Cross Boys, and I said, Lauren, do you think you could try to go visit Kevin McArevey, and would you be able to fit this into your schedule? And she said yes. And I said, if you can't, just at the very least get a picture of the mural. We'll talk about the mural later. And praise be that Kevin and I made contact, and he was so generous with his time with Lauren and her father, and gave them a tour of the school. And it was during philosophy week, so it was like an ideal time for Lauren to be there. And I also asked Lauren, if you do get a meeting with Kevin, get to meet him, can you please ask him for a copy of his book, Think, Respond? And because this is a hard, you can't get it. You can't get this book in the United States. And so she did, and it's like I have it here with me. I'm looking at it. We're not going to do video with this, but there it is. And I read this book, and I will say the book is better than the movie. The book is going really deeply into the backstory that we'll be talking about today. So, okay, Kevin, enough for me. Let's have you. You're the guest of honor, and you are the principal at Holy Cross Boys School. And can you say a little bit just about the school, what grades it serves, its role in the community in Ardoyne, and so forth?
Yeah, Holy Cross Boys, as the name suggests, is an all-boys school in the heart of the Ardoyne community. Ardoyne obviously is a highly stressed area because of the troubles, the legacy of the troubles. There's a lot of transformational um, transformational trauma that exists within the area. And that's a legacy of the troubles, obviously, because there would be, and in many homes there would be alcoholic addiction, there would be gambling, some drug addiction, and some domestic violence. And we deal with the outworkings of that, and that's the children. So when they come in, they're coming in with all this baggage. But we at the school ask that the children leave all of that at the big gates, and we have lovely big colourful gates there that we, as a community, all came out and painted during COVID, and we painted in the colour of the rainbow. So, as I say, this school has 400 pupils, and we have up to 72 staff. There's enough of a great need in the school that's handled with greatly by a great team. And we thought that it's important to do something different. It's important to leave a legacy. It's important to uh, give a community something to really value. And they really do value what we do here. They value our the philosophy that is unheard of in primary schools, and also the output of our transfer results, where the children transfer from here to grammar school. So for us, it's a great setting. It's a neighbourhood school. It's a school that the parents are extremely proud of, and that's why the film Young Plato works so well, because the trust that the parents have with the staff in the school.
Amazing. And there's also a Holy Cross Girls School, correct?
There is, yes. Holy Cross Girls is a good 5 minutes in the car from here, and it's in the middle of a Protestant area. And in the film Young Plato, we deal with it very sensitively in how the whole tobacco was sort of handled. In 2001, it was a bit of a. I have to say it was tough at the time to sort of deal with, but what we wanted to do was, whenever people say Holy Cross, we wanted them to have a smile more than a frown, because that was frowned upon, what happened in 2001. We obviously can't forget what happened in 2001. That wasn't right. But now when they say Holy Cross, it's philosophy. It's, oh, that's the school with philosophy. So we've
Amazing.
sort of changed the narrative, and that's what we wanted to do, change that narrative into a positive story, and not a negative one.
Can you just say a little bit about what happened in 2001 for those of us who haven't seen
Yeah,
in the film Young Plato?
yeah. In 2001, there was problems between the Catholic and the Protestant community over flags, over whether a flag was allowed up in a lamppost, or it wasn't. And apparently there was fighting between some men, and because the flags weren't allowed to be put up in the lamppost, then they stopped the children walking up the road to go to the school, because it's a Protestant-owned road. And that's basically sort of the history of sort of what happened. Now it got to the point where the police had to come in and ensure that the children were walked up in safety into the school. But then, sure, wasn't there bombs thrown at the children, which was a disgrace. And both sides have to look at each other. I mean, there's bad choices made on both sides, but that's something that just shouldn't happen. Is that a child should walk to school in safety and not have to worry about injury.
Yes, thank you for explaining that. Um, so, and when did you become principal? What year?
I became principal in 2013, September
Okay,
2013. Uh,
2013.
the outgoing principal left in June, the end of June. That was Terry Laverty.
Yeah. Yes, and we're going to talk a little bit about Terry Laverty because you mentioned him in your book, Think, Respond, and Think, Respond. Just so we have a timeline here. So you become principal in 2013, and Think, Respond is published in 2021. Is that correct?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then the film Young Plato is 2022. So let's go
yeah.
back. Actually, how did you first become interested in philosophy? Did you study it in school?
You know, I went to Queen's University, and you know, I went behind the years with 18-year-old from West Belfast, who wasn't supposed to really make it to Queen's University, but academically, that just the stars realigned, and I went, so off I went, and I did philosophy in Queen's, and it was more political philosophy than sort of ancient philosophy. It was all about, you know, Machiavelli and Hobbes and Locke and Rousseau and sort of Karl Marx and Hegel and that. So, and I remember doing the thought experiment of Thomas Hobbes, the ship of thesis. I thought, yeah, that's good, you know, identity and change, and sort of looking at the changes that kids go through as from a baby to a wee adolescent and into a teenager. Oh, sorry, teenager and then adolescent. You know, so that's the story that sort of grabbed me, and I forgot all about it. I honestly forgot all about it, and off I went to be a teacher, and with Terry Lovery. Terry was all about the thinking the brain, and you know, making us sort of use it in different ways, and bringing that into the classroom. So what we did was we set up a professional learning community within our SLT, and we were all tasked to go off and to read different educational researchers and to bring stuff back that we could implement into the classroom. And I brought back Edward de Bono's Six Thinking Hats, which it was incredible for the lads. They absolutely loved de Bono's Six Thinking Hats. And
Okay.
somebody came back with Jeff Petty, some stuff from Jeff Petty, and then there was Boy Bennett, the other educational researcher. So we'd done an awful lot of research, and we knew we were onto something, but we just didn't know what it was. You know, yeah, we were being different, we were being creative, we were being innovative, but we didn't know where we were going. And then didn't the principal retire, and at the sort of height of all that, and as he was leaving, he said to me, "Would you ever think of philosophy?" And I thought, well, you know, I'm becoming the new principal, and I think I'm going to get my feet under the table, sort of relax into the role. I don't want to be doing anything that I
Major
don't.
change immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't want to do that. I was like, no, no, I just want to become principal and see how it go. But then, you know what? It just kept going round and round and going, do you know what? Just go for it. I'm just going to go for it. So on the summer, when I was supposed to be getting ready to be a principal and to get all the documents and hit the ground running with the staff and all, you know, oh God, you're supposed to be so brilliant. And I just researched philosophy, and off I went. And I tried Sudbury, and then I thought, no, it's not for me. It's not for me. And I found this guy in London called Pete Worley, and he had a sidekick called Steve Hoggins. I'm saying to him, you know, listen, I want to permeate and embed and infuse philosophy into my curriculum. I just don't want someone to come in or me to do 1 hour a week. I just want it to be part of the very fabric of the school. And he said, big undertaking. And I said, well, I mean, can you train the staff? Can you train me first and then come over and train the staff? He says, yeah, yes, you come over. So I commuted forward and back to London, and I loved it. I absolutely loved what they did. I loved that they were doing philosophy. And this is where young Plato changed everything, because uh, I then brought the theory in. Pete and Steve weren't about the theory, they were about doing philosophy. They weren't about bringing and connecting the theory. And when I connected the theory with the primary twos and they got it, I was like, wow, they get it. Primary twos get Plato, you know. And I thought, right, let's bring in the theorists. Let's bring in doing philosophy and doing some of the theory as well. Because, I mean, I was of the idea that the Wittgenstein had, the philosophy was an activity and not a theory. Now, dare I say it, I go against Wittgenstein. What a guy. McArevey, Principal Holy Cross Boys, goes against the great Wittgenstein. But I do, because for me, you know, it's theory and practice. You know, kids can do it. I mean, taking it from that tall ivory tower, you know, where these philosophers stroke their long beards, and it's only for the academics. No, it's not. It's for everybody, because we do it every day. Every single day we do philosophy. And I'm trying to tell them that thinking is a part of what you're about. And the great thinkers around the world have changed us. I talk about Rosa Parks all the time. I say about, how Rosa was on that Montgomery bus and she decided, I'm not getting off this seat. No, I'm not. And that action, that one thing that day changed and had sweeping changes across the world. So I'm saying to the children, you can do that. Why can't you? Why can't you do that? You can. So um, Pete then came over and trained the staff, right? And he came over a couple of times and he came in and watched them take their philosophy lessons and he critiqued them and he came back and says, to remediate, we need to look at this, we need to look at that. And I said, Pete, look, I love what you're doing, but I also want my classroom assistants involved. Can you train them? He says, I've never been asked to train classroom assistants in my life. I says, well, everybody's in this. We're all in this together. This is a team effort. I said, because this is going out into the community. This just isn't educate the school. This is educating the community. This is what I want. And he was like, marvelous, fantastic. So that was the secret to my success. The classroom assistants, big time, because they tell your story. They live in the area. They go into the bars, they go into the restaurants. They are the ones who socialize and tell your story. So when these classroom assistants who haven't maybe studied in years, all of a sudden they're becoming a lot more confident in what they're articulating, what they're saying, and the things they're coming across. Like I did with the classroom assistants, the Johnny Cash song, When a Man Comes Around, right? And we broke it down, and they loved it. They loved it where Johnny was coming from and looking in at the words, and it fantastic. And I said, "Now this is philosophy of music. This is where Johnny was at when he was writing this song, and the dark places he was in. But yet from a dark song comes this beautiful sound, and so they were going, is this what philosophy's all about? This is brilliant. So you just bring them in, oh my God, this is class. And I said, nah, that Seneca was all about, and even though he's in that time, he was all about music and all about how you use music to look after yourself and to look after your mental health. And I said, Seneca, like, how was our music back then? What do you mean, how was our music back then? Do your history, But anyway, so eh, when you have everybody believing in your journey and rowing in behind me, I wasn't dragging them along. They loved it because when I came back from London the first time, I said, look, we're going to do philosophy with the primary ones and the primary twos. And the teachers in the foundation stage and the key stage one stage started laughing. They said, what? You're going to do philosophy with who? And I said, come along. I said, I'm borrowing a class, I'm borrowing a P2 class, and we're going to do a philosophy class. And we did. And I had the teachers eating out of my hand, never mind the kids, because when they saw the thinking that was on show, they could not believe it. They said, I didn't know kids could do that. They said, because we take over the education. We don't let children listen to children. And see, when you have children listening to children and responding and saying, well, I understand what you're saying. I don't agree because I agree with him. And here's why I agree with him. And they're not getting aggressive and they're not getting angry. They're listening, effectively listening to each other and asking questions and being probing and looking for hypotheticals and all. Beautiful. I mean, absolutely beautiful. So once that happened, philosophy in Holy Cross Boys just took off.
So I have a question right there because it sounds amazing through and through at this point. Like this is the coolest story ever, and I want to know what has been a surprising piece of resistance for you as you've been implementing these things and developing them that like people who are not school administrators would be surprised about because like I'm just seeing this getting implemented and know there's a thousand moving pieces and I'm just curious like where's the friction point?
I had a friction point. Oh, yes. So I am not going to curse online because it would make the story sound a lot better. But here's what we're going to do. Um, After young Plato, I got a knock at my door, and I opened the door, and there was a parent standing there, and he was angry. And I said to him, "Are you okay?" He says, "I need to talk to you." And I says, right. He says, "Who do you think you are challenging our belief systems?" I says, "What do you mean?" He said, "Violence. Violence has been a part of our area for a long time. Do you know what we do?" I says, "What?" "We stopped the invasion of the Protestants." And I said, "Invasion of the Protestants?" I says, "When was the last one?" He says, "Exactly, there hasn't been, because we protect this area." And I was like, "Okay." I says, "Come in and sit down." I said, what is it you're talking to me about?" He says, um, "I was up at that roundabout fighting the police, fighting the British Army, fighting the Protestants, because we won't be walked over." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Right, all right." And I said, "How did you feel? How did you feel when you were up there?" He says, "What do you mean?" I says, "The first time you went up, how did you actually feel?" He says, "Well, obviously stressed and anxious and worried, and I knew there was danger." And I says, "Yes, yes, exactly." I says, "And are those the feelings you want your son to have?" I said, "What?" I said, "Are those the feelings that you want your son to have?" And he said, "Well, not exactly." I said, "Well, do you know that children can get um, what do you call those, a criminal record from the age of 9?" And he said, "What?" I said, "Yes, laws change. Children can get a criminal record from the age of 9." And I said, "And you're going to send your son up to experience all those feelings, with the endangerment of getting a criminal record, which means that he won't be able to go off to America or Australia or Japan and live his dreams, because guess what? He has a criminal record." And he said, "Oh, I never thought of it like that." And I said, "Well," I said, "this is what we're trying to protect." It says, "Balance is not the answer. Dialogue is. Philosophy, talking, reasoning. That's what the answer is. And that's what we need to do. And that's what I'm here to teach your child to do." And he's, "Right, Mr. Macker." And he's high fiving me, going out and all, "Oh, thanks for your time and all, that's brilliant, thank you very much." Now, if I hadn't given him that time, he still would be out in the area, still espousing that narrative to whoever would listen to him, you know. But it is about talking to people like that, and it is about giving people your time to explain, here's what we're doing, here is the vision, here's what everybody wants, but you're afraid to ask for it. And the only way we're going to get it is through dialogue, is through our narrative, is through telling our stories. You see, what you need to understand is, we all have stories, we all have anecdotes, but we all need to be listened. We all have a culture, we all need to understand them. We all need to listen, but we don't need to agree. You don't have to agree. You can say, "I understand what you're saying, I don't agree." And do you know what that's doing? That's making us all learn to disagree well. Because to disagree well is something that we don't do here. We disagree with aggression, with anger. And the one who shouts the loudest has won the argument. I'm sorry, that's no longer the case. The case is, let's talk, let's reason, let's do dialogue, let's ask questions. But above all, let's effectively listen.
I love that. So, I mean, is this the place where it hooks together for like philosophical inquiry for you then? Is this like are these dovetailing at that spot?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. Because you see, um, I was talking about the transgenerational trauma earlier, and kids in this school aren't getting the language, the language base that you need for philosophy, for the ways in. So, I thought, well, what better way to do it than in the school? So, in Think Respond in the book, I have a philosopher's box, and when the children are in primary 5 and 6 and 7, they will hold that box, and they will say, "Well, to illustrate a point, I would like to say, turn the box around. Um, I agree with someone because," or to turn it round. The best answer I heard today was, it gives them the way into the conversation, and it's written on the box. Once they hit the end of P6, I take the box away for primary 7. They have a way into the conversation. And that's what an awful lot of boys especially struggle with, the way into a conversation without anger, without aggression.
Maybe I can take a picture of the philosophy box that's in your book and put it on the show resources page. We use this phrase, enter the forest, and what you're talking about is giving people a way to enter the forest of dialogue. And it sounds like, yeah, you use this actual box, and then that scaffolds, like they internalize all the different ways they can enter a conversation without aggression. It's really,
Yes.
really beautiful. If I may, like when going back to when you ring up Peter Worley.
So, listen, the Philosophy Foundation uh, were outstanding in that nothing was an issue, nothing was a problem. They uh, give us access to all the resources, and the best resource was obviously Pete and Steve. And at that time, Steve was married to Emma. They've since parted ways. She's now Emma Swim, and so when you have people like those who are great motivators, who are great for inspiration, and just had time for us. Nothing was ever an issue. Nothing was ever a problem. And most of what we do here is obviously based on the Philosophy Foundation, but an awful lot of it is a sort of my own sort of direction,
Yes.
my own sort of
Yep.
way of looking at it. So young Plato sort of became TTR, Think, Think, Respond. And I was writing the book in 2014. So I had a vision and I knew that it was going to work. I really did hope. I knew that I was onto something here. And so I started to write the book because I knew that I didn't know about young Plato, obviously. I didn't know it was down the line, but I knew that people needed to be able to do what we were doing. And I'm a father of 4 girls, right? I'm a principal of an all boys school, which is so ironic. Uh, but the girls in the McArevey household were just hit with philosophy from they were no age, and indeed uh, a big groundbreaking statement for you. I'm writing a book called Crosslands, Janie Mack, the Philosopher Queen. And it's a novel, right? And it's based on my daughter,
Wow.
Jenny Mac. And basically, it's about how a child's voice throws light on a dark school, and trying to bring philosophy and trying to bring free thinking in, and the school hits back, and there's ghosts in it and spirits in it, and um, so she's this shining light, and the principal is really a great advocate of philosophy, but he can't show it because his board of governors are all have this dark sort of experience, and then this ghost called Patty, who was a caretaker in the school. His daughter died, because she was creative at one time when the school was a free thinking school, and she died in a dam. And he was going to ensure that the school didn't go back to that, because if she hadn't had the creative mind, she wouldn't have went to the dam and she wouldn't have died. And he was grief stricken, and so Janie's fighting against the ghostly spirits and the management of the school, and then she befriends a wee ghost who happens to be Paddy's daughter. But it's going to be a lovely story. It really is. But
Oh,
what it
wow.
is, Hope, is it's my way of, and the book is like it's a learning book. There'll be philosophical inquiries in it, and things like that. So it'll be a learning book for philosophy. But I'm trying to get into all the schools in a way that will sort of capture the imagination of children, and using ghosts and spirits and um, little girls as well. So hopefully it'll work. But listen, I'm nearly there with it. I'm nearly there with it. But I'm always trying to push with the philosophy and to get that story that makes this school such an outlier.
That sounds amazing. I can't wait for that. You really had this vision, and you're implementing this vision. Uh, and before Young Plato in 2022, there's another documentary. We'll have it on our show resources page called Thinking About Thinking. I had no idea of this, and I only learned about it because you refer to it in Think, Respond. And so you're doing this thing and, changing what we call over here the normative ecosystem, or the whole ecosystem of Ardoin, so that philosophy is, coming into the community. And I imagine that this documentary, Thinking About Thinking, was just a natural consequence of you changing the ecosystem there. Can you speak a little bit about how that 2017 documentary came about?
Yeah, that 2017 documentary, it it came about. I would be on the news a lot, talking about different issues, and especially on education. And one of the news reporters, when she was in, happened to see that I was doing philosophy, and she said, "Oh my goodness, you're doing philosophy in a primary school." I says, "Yes." She says, "God, I'd love to film this, see how it goes." And I said, "Look, listen, I get some of the boys to talk about philosophy, and you can get them sort of doing a wee bit of philosophy, and as you can see from the documentary." So those kids that got in front of that screen, I kid you not, they were not prepped. They were not, "Oh, here's your lines, you must deliver." I says, "Look,
And when
just get on." The guy was filming. He was looking at me, going, um, what's going on here? Did you give them these lines?" And I said, "No, this is what they're doing. They're doing philosophy, and I tell them why they're doing philosophy. I tell them, um, if you're if things become really dark within you, then you have to understand that philosophy is a lifeboat. Philosophy is you imagine we're all on this big ship, and philosophy is a lifeboat that's going to come along and save you, in that very dark hour that you're in, and that hopefully you'll understand that, you know, you are at a point in your head where, you know, you've lost a wee bit of control. You reassert control. You look at the consequences of what you're going to do, of the dark place you're in, that this is only a temporary thing, a temporary place that you're in at the minute, that this too will pass, and you look back in a week and go, how did I even get there? So for me, it's important that I connect mentally to their emotions, to who they are, and that they use it to sort of find that inner peace, and to always know that people will try to control you with their words. And the kids, "What do you mean by control by the words?" And I'd say, "Well, if you're sitting working, and a kid comes up and says, 'Hey, Spaggy,' you know, all of a sudden your emotions kicking. Those words are controlling you. But what you really need to do is receive it, interpret it, and then say, you know what, I'm going to respond to that and say, listen, I'm working here, have a good day, and just go and do what you're doing." And the kids love that. They absolutely love that. They know that they're trying to be controlled, and they love that word control. Yeah, you're right, sir. They try to control. Then I tell them about how somebody's words can be your inner monologue, and they can take over your thinking. All the positive things you think about yourself, and somebody says one negative, and it takes over. Why? Why do you let it take over? Don't let it become your inner monologue. You take control of your thoughts. You look in the mirror. You love what you see. Don't let anybody else's opinion ruin who you are and ruin your day. So it's all of us as educators, we need to be taking and setting the children down and saying, listen, mental health is a big part of education now. Massive part. And philosophy helps. It really does. All these great thinkers, all what Seneca said, all what Epictetus said, or Marcus Aurelius, all these great thinkers who advise us on what we should do when we think this, or when we're here, or this event happens, or so these great thinkers are there to help us.
Right. And we'll talk about later how you This is part of, that this connection of philosophy and thinking to mental health. That that is so powerful, and I just want our listeners, to hold that. But later we'll talk about, this ecosystem that you've created in detail, and one of the things that you do, just planting the seed for later, is Mental Health Week,
Yes.
and that's just so good. So awesome. And we will be shifting in a minute to your very specific method after talking about this philosophical inquiry in general, as promoted by the Philosophy Foundation in London. But eventually, this 2022 documentary, which is how I learned about you and the Philosophy Foundation, and all of this. And I should also say that I grew up in New Jersey, in Essex County, and I had philosophy in high school. And I know that Montclair State University, I think, Kevin, is that really the first place that's doing philosophy for children, as they call it, at Montclair State University? Is that your understanding?
That is. It
Yeah,
is.
it's my
Yes.
understanding too. And that was about 50 years ago.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I don't think it's accidental that, I grew up right next to Montclair State University. I went to a university called William Patterson University, but I went to a high school called Columbia High School, and I had three philosophy classes in high school that wasn't philosophical inquiry. It was, one was called Philosophy and Literature. I had epistemology in high school, and then I had Intro to Philosophy in high school, and that was it. I was like, I want to be a philosophy professor. But I don't learn about philosophical inquiry, the Philosophy Foundation, philosophy for children, really until Young Plato comes out. So praise be for that movie. And as I understand it, that movie comes about because you have an encounter with the producer, Declan McGrath. Is that
Yes.
correct? So
That's correct.
how do you guys get together?
Well, Declan McGrath, he is a past pupil of St Malachy's College, and a lot of our kids go to, it's a grammar school, would go to St Malachy's College. Now, because he's a pupil of St Malachy's College, he would have gone with Holy Cross boys, right? And one of the past pupils of Holy Cross, a guy called Colin Dorr, whose father was the vice principal here, had mentioned to him that, do you know that the kids in Ardoyne are doing philosophy? And Declan laughed and says, no, they're not. He said, they are. He said, I was in one of their philosophical inquiries and it was amazing. They were talking about morality and the law. And he said, they were talking about morality and the law? He said, it was brilliant. Oh, my, oh, mate, that was brilliant. Now, Declan obviously is a sound man for BBC. And he, so he said, well, can I meet this Kevin McArevey? And he said, yeah, yeah, she's Kevin's sound. I'll ring him up. We'll go up, grab a cup of tea, and we'll have a chat. And he said, would he be up for that? And he said, of course he would. He loves it. So Colin phoned me up and he said, this guy, Declan McGrath. And I said, now, we've already done a documentary, called Thinking About Thinking. And he said he hasn't seen it, but he would like to talk to you. And I said, right, okay. So he came up and I played the documentary to Derek and he says, no, that's not what we want. We wouldn't be about this. There's this girl called Nasa Nahinon. Said she will film it and I'll do the sound. Can I bring her to meet you and she'll explain what we do? So Nasa came up to the school. She's from Donegal in Southern Ireland. And she had produced this film called School Life. Now, NASA knew what she wanted. She wanted me all along, but she went along with it and she said, okay, well, we'll follow this teacher. So she followed the teacher and she was coming down and she said, it's not what we want, it's not what we want. Come and follow you. And I said, look, I'm the principal. I'm too busy. And she said, no, 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 you won't even know we're there. And I said, yeah, yeah, of course. Won't even know you're there. I said, there's a camera. And she said, honestly, you won't even know we're there. And you know what? Hope, see after, and Randy, see after 6 weeks, I didn't know she was there. I forgot all about her being there. The kids forgot all about her being there. And that's why it worked so well because she would have gone into the yard and wasn't even filming, but just had the camera. and the kids thought they were filming, and they would have done rude gestures and all to her and all, and they were only started, you know. And so she said, "We'll just get them used to us." So again, she became a ghost in the school. Honestly, we give her a room in the school to retire to when she wasn't filming, and she would look at what she'd filmed, and because some of the stuff that's in Holy in sorry in Young Plato, I actually put my head in my hands and go, "Oh my God, oh no, I wish I'd have remembered the camera was there." I just cringe and go, "Oh no." And it's almost like it's a setup, like I had set up the shot, but I didn't. I just didn't realize that the camera was there. And I remember when she first started filming, right, and she went up to my first four philosophy lessons. Randy, they were A1, they were amazing, they were phenomenal, and she wouldn't use them. She said, "You're playing to the camera." And I was like, "What do you mean I'm playing to the camera?" She said, "Kevin, you're acting. You're playing to the camera." And I was like, "Right." It just says, "Be yourself. Just like we're not there." And that took me a while. And then that's when they really caught the essence of the film. Because you can see that it's raw. It's raw emotion of the children. It's raw emotion of myself as well. And that's what I said to the parents. I said, "Look, listen, what you're going to see up on the screen." So we brought the parents in before, obviously, Young Plato was shown to the parents, and said, "Here's what you're going to see." We didn't show them what they were going to see. We told them about, here's what's going to be on. How do you feel? And they were, "Oh yeah, no, listen, we trust you, no problem, great, yes, fantastic." So I was a bit worried, and I think my only sort of regret, if that's the best word to use, my only regret is that I didn't do a Q&A in Cityside when we first showed the film to the parents. That was my only regret, and because it was amazing. I couldn't have foreseen the joy and all the enthusiasm after the movie. It was a big standing ovation, and they were screaming and shouting, and you know what? I should have done a Q&A, but we were actually worried how they would receive it, to be perfectly honest. But they loved it.
Amazing. Go
So,
ahead.
real quick, I'm wondering if, like, in the moment where, like, in between this moment where your videographer says, "Hey, you're playing to the camera," and then you being able to relax, like, that time horizon, was it about the same for you and the students too, or was the students never afflicted in the same way as you, and they were just totally like on board from the beginning?
I think, Randy, you've caught something there, because um, you're right. It was harder for me. It certainly was. The kids took it like a duck to water. They really did. Um, you know, there wasn't too many sessions that she didn't use. Like, and for example, if something happened and a kid said something that was like so extreme, and I would say to her, "Listen, pause that. I mean, and we'll do that again." And she'd go, "No, no, we're not using it." I go, "What?" And she said, "Look, see, people watching this film, they can see through things like that. They can see through things that you're actually setting it up. That you are okay, that you are sort of setting this up, and that it's being re-recorded." And she said, "We're not using it. That's not the way this works." Now, if I had to be making it wrong, it would have been different, and I would have said, "No, no, I want this line in," or, "No, see what he said there, that was brilliant, make sure that's in." She go, "No, we're not using it." So listen, she was quite like stern with it, the whole thing, because she said, an observational film to be working and to be effective, it has to be real.
Yeah, well, that's incredible, and thank you. I'm just blown away.
So yeah, we'll have a link to young Plato, but again, like we've been talking with Kevin McArevey about this history of his philosophical odyssey as he becomes principal in 2013. He's going for it. He has a vision. He's doing it. And eventually that has led to first a book, 2021, Think, Think, Respond. And so, Kevin, as I understand it, Think, Think, Respond is like the name for Holy Cross Boys' unique approach to philosophical inquiry. Is that a correct statement?
That certainly is. You see,
All right,
uh,
awesome.
at the front of the book it's think, respond. At the back of the book it's TTR, and that's the difference between fast thinking and slow thinking. Think, respond. That takes about 5 seconds, and then TTR is that sort of fast approach. I would say to the kids, if that their alarm goes off in the morning, TTR, I'm up. I'm heading towards the bathroom, water in the face, looking in the mirror. You're going to have a great day, kid, because know who's looking at you? You are. You are. And before your brain knows it, you're up, you've water around your face, and you are ready for the day. I said, so that's the TTR approach. Just bang, away I go and do it. And like, oh wait, sure, that's great. And then if I ask you a question, think about it, and then respond. So we need both thinking in our lives. So you have to tell the children the sort of difference between them, and even with regards to homework. Do your homework, son. I don't want to do my homework. That's awful. So TTR takes away stress, takes away overthinking, takes away anxiety, and allows you to enjoy doing what you're going to do. Just TTR it and go and do it. Don't overthink it. Don't be stressed. Don't be worried. Don't be anxious. Just go and do it.
Yeah, that's again this really beautiful connection with thinking, philosophy, and mental health, which, yeah, I think that's part of your unique, that is TTR, includes that linkage between philosophy and mental health. It's so good. So we're going to shift now and just talk about philosophical inquiry in general, and then going into more detail about your approach, TTR. But I want to say first that if you look at the website of the Philosophy Foundation, you'll see a phrase like philosophy for children. But make
Yes.
no mistake, what Kevin, you're doing is not just philosophy for children. You are creating a whole philosophical ecosystem in Ardoin. And to just drive that point home, I have a very short, this is a 15-second clip from young Plato that I'm going to play. And we'll talk about taking philosophy out of the academic setting and into, I think you say, the living room. So here comes the clip.
What I'm trying to do is bring philosophy from this hall, kicking through those doors, out through those big blue gates, and booting your front door down, going into your living room.
That I said that Socrates, philosophy was about, yeah, before Socrates, it was all about the cosmos and the Milky Way and the stars, and that's what philosophy was about, all about the study of that. But Socrates has made it more personal and more real. He's taken it from there and brought it into our living room and made it more personal to us as people, and that's where we're at today with regards to what we owe Socrates. That he did that, and that we can now use that as part of our mental health journey, to aid us, um, to enjoy the passage of time. So that was me talking to the parents, telling the parents, listen, um, this is a journey that we're all going on together. This is not us educating your children. This is about bringing it into your homes, and that's why we devised the well-being log and the homework diary. So on a Thursday night, what happens is homework collapses and the children go home with a philosophy question. So in that book, there are 40 philosophy questions that the parents will discuss around the dinner table. Now, I did have a parent who said to me, look, one of the questions was, is it okay to eat meat? And my husband said it was. My daughter said it was. My son said it was. And I said it was. So where's the philosophy? So I thought, right, okay. So then I had to devise a page to put it into that book to show parents how to run a philosophical inquiry. And I said, nah, imagine the imaginary disagreeer comes into your room and sitting at that table. What would they be thinking if they didn't think it was okay to eat meat? So you got to flip the thinking. Oh, right. I says, and then maybe we'll break the circle and we'll look at the whole idea of could you describe meat to a person who's never seen it without using the word meat? So that gets the creative juices flowing and gets everybody talking. I said, so we're sitting around that table, and what we're doing is this: is we're getting rid of screen time, no screen time. No Facebook, no phones. If your phone rings, don't answer it. Turn off your TV. This is family time. To bringing back traditional family values. That's so important because we are missing out now because phones and screen time is taking over our children's lives, and we need to fight back. And philosophy is our fight back.
So yeah, once again, this connection to the reason why we should take philosophy, and in the clip you say, booting down these blue gates and
Yeah.
taking it into your living room, is because of this mental health connection, which is multidimensional, of course, and like one piece of it is the effect of screens on our mental health. um, and I know in Think, Think, Respond, the book, you mentioned Abraham Maslow. Thank you very much. Because Maslow talks about, the hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
And what I talk about Maslow in some of my classes, and we talk about unhealthy ways to satisfy, for example, the needs for belonging or connectedness, and that being on a screen and social media is like a low grade type of connection, and you may feel like a sense of belonging in that, but it's so inferior to actual conversation with physical people, and we need
Yes.
to be reminded of that. And
Yes.
can you talk about, so you've mentioned the reducing of the screen time, this whole context of intergenerational trauma that you're working on. Can you talk about some other things that philosophy is helping with regarding the mental health dimension?
Oh yeah. So basically, I thought, right, I've gotten to the world with young Plato. I'm getting the academics with um, my book, Think, Think, Respond. I've written a song called the TTR song, which is on Spotify,
Cool.
right? And you can listen to that on Spotify. TTR. You've got a T space T space R song, Holy Cross Boys. What that song's about is about mental health. It's about how you look after yourself. It's about positivity. It's about peace, hope, and reconciliation. You will love that hope. You will love that song because that's what that song is all about. It's a TTR song. So I'm getting to the teenagers with that song. That's how I'm getting to the teenagers. That song is my way into them, and I'm hoping that they use the words of that song because you will listen to that song. It's a cracking song. I wrote the song, and I had my teacher play the guitar on it. The boys sing the song. Holy Cross Boys. They sing the song. Beautiful song, and it's called, to say, the TTR song. But, what is it we want as parents? We want successful children who are wise and kind. Yeah? That's what we want. If I do that as a principal, if I can say that my children are successful, wise and kind, I've done a great job. You've done a great job as a parent. And it's about balancing the emotions as well. Balance the emotions. Is that your prize? Because that is the course of the TTR song. Get success, be wise, we're being kind. Balance emotions, is that your praise? Think fast, think slow. TTR is how we flow. That is the actual course of the song. And you will see it. And I talk about Aristotle's triangle of happiness. I talk about Plato. I talk about Seneca and all the great thinking. And I talk about peace. Peace, not war to reconcile. Speak, think, listen, it's all worthwhile. That's where we are today. It's our legacy. Again, they are words that I've written for that song. Peace, not war, to reconcile. And that's how the song opens on YouTube. I have one child say, peace, not war, to reconcile. You know that we we are in a world where people are not thinking about the future of children, children's vision, the hope and expectations that we have for our children. There's too much war. You know, there are too many Putins, there are too many Stalins and Hitlers in this world that we need to get to. We need to say to them, you have children, please respect. Respect life. Life has a purpose and it's family. Remember, you have a family too. You know, because I was asked a question by one of the children. Uh, he said, sir, one of the Russian pilots is in his plane and he has bombs to drop on hospitals or schools or maternities or I said, what's going through his head, sir? What's going through his head? He has children too. Would he like that done on his children? This is where I have children thinking, you know, and he's right. He's absolutely right. We need to understand that peace in our time is what we want. Peace in our time is what we deserve. And peace in our time will happen when we have your organisation, Hope, when we have um, think, respond, when we have the TTR song, when we have other people doing their bit and letting people understand that there are people who care and we care. We care because we want to educate. We want to educate those people to say, listen, peace in our time.
So I love the fact that we're zooming in on like big words, words like peace, and how rich they are once you start to unpack them. And I want to jump back real quick to the conversation about phones and screen time, and just zoom in on the word stimulus, because I understand that the Philosophy Foundation has a way of zooming in on the word stimulus as well that um, unpacks in a meaningful way as well. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, the stimuli that we use, obviously, for philosophy. See, philosophy, Randy, is about framing, okay? And framing is whether you're going to use stories or you're going to use quotes or you're going to use photos or you're going to use videos, and what way are we going to unpack the stimuli or the stimulus that is in front of us? Now, a lot of what's in Think, Respond is based in and around um, bullying, anger, homelessness, happiness, sadness, aliens. Does God exist? You know, so we as a school are looking at all of those philosophical themes and we are having conversations around them. And we as a school are not afraid to discuss these things. And a big one, Randy, is death. They tell me you don't discuss death in school. And I say, no, I'm sorry. There's nothing that a child doesn't experience. And children experience death. Now, here's what I did, just so you know. So I don't know if you've watched me on screen or whatever, but um, we had a child who lost his grandmother and he was hurting. So what I did was I made up this story about this wee cat, and the cat was a big part of the family. And that when the daughter got married, the cat walked up the aisle with the rings and all around its collar and went on holidays and they had it 17 years, big part of the family. But it, you know, it got hit by a car, brought it to the vet, and the vet couldn't save it. And I said, and what they did was then they got the cat's paw print and they took a photograph of it and they took a photo and all of the family got that photo and they have it on their mantelpiece to look at the cat, to smile, to think about the stories and to be happy that they had that cat for that long at length of time. And then I said to the kids, has anybody got experiences like that? And one of the kids put his hand up, me sir. And I said, yes. He said, We had a wee pet budgie, and you called him Henrik. Now, for all the American viewers, they're not going to know who Henrik is, but to all the viewers who love Glasgow Celtic, he's named after Henrik Larsson, one of the greatest footballers to ever put on a pair of boots for Glasgow Celtic. So he says, our budgie died. And do you know what my mummy did? I said, no. She said, she made pillowcases. And Henrik's face is on the pillowcase cover. So see, when I go to sleep every night, I fall into Henrik and I smile because he was brilliant. And I said, God, that's lovely. Thank you for sharing that. And then another kid said, well, we had a dog and the dog was called Patch. And Patch was like the wee cat and he was a big part of the family and then he died and my sister wrote a poem. P is for, A is for, T is for, C is for, H is for, an acrostic poem about the dog and we took his photograph and we have him on our mantelpiece and we tell our lovely stories and then our kid says, well, my sister made mobile phone covers of our dog. He ran away last year, but he came back a year later. I thought, oh, God, that's a good story. But then I got to the boy I wanted to talk to, the boy who lost his granny. And he said, I said, so, you know, Shay, tell me about your granny. Oh, he called her Anne. And I said, oh, right, tell everybody about Granny Anne. He says, well, Granny Anne was a funny woman. She loved to tell us jokes and make us laugh. And we went down to Newcastle, which is in County Down, and we would have gone into an ice cream shop called Maud's, got an ice cream, got onto the beach, walked up and down the beach holding our shoes, eating our ice cream, and Granny telling the stories with the ocean going off our feet. And I says, all right. And I says, so tell me, what happened to my granny died? And I says, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. He says, what did you do after to remember? He says, well, my mummy brought us down to Maud's in Newcastle. We went on to the beach, we got our ice cream, and we walked up and down. We had our shoes and our ice cream, and we talked about Granny and all her stories. And then we wrote her name on the sand, a big giant Anne, and we took photographs around it. And then we waited on the ocean coming in to take Granny's name away, just like God did. So my Granny's smiling now, and I'm like, whoa, what a story. Fantastic. But you know what's happening there, Randy? That's children teaching children how to deal and cope with death. Not me.
That's to children
Children.
teaching everybody.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And you wouldn't hear that if you're not doing this. If I'm not talking about this, because children experience death just like we do, and how they handle it and how they cope with it and their emotions and all. And they might have to write it down. They might have to write down a poem or go off and sing a song or do something. But children have feelings too, and they need to talk about it.
Well, and they have a voice, and the fact that
Yeah,
you're showing them how to use it and wield it and bring that into the world is just
yeah,
spectacularly beautiful.
yeah.
So, like going back to Randy's question about like unpacking this word stimulus, which
Yes,
is that's like a core concept in philosophical inquiry. Like the way that the inquiry begins is with a stimulus, and when this discussion
yes,
about death, like it's a stimulus can be a question, like has
yes.
something like this happened to you? Can you just like what other stimuli can one use besides questions?
Yeah, that's what I was sort of said and alluded to at the outset there, Randy, to Randy. You know, I see the stimulus is seen as framing, right? And the framing, the stimulus
I
would
see.
be questions, would be photos, would be videos, would be even an object.
Okay.
It doesn't matter, but mostly it's stories. Mostly it's stories with questions, and we would maybe use just a photograph, and there was a lovely photograph we had where a lion, or sorry, a tiger had four wee piglets running up it, and what had happened was the piglets had lost their mother, the tiger had lost its wee baby cubs, and they put the piglets in with the tiger, and that was the only stillness we had. And at the top of it, it sort of said, "Can anybody be a mother?" You know, and the philosophical discussion we had just from that photograph, and was incredible. But that's what I mean. Stimulus, stimuli. It's all around that framing. And
Mm-hmm.
that framing is, as I said, whether it's a video, whether it's a picture, whether it's a story, whether it's a song, whether it's a title, doesn't matter. We use all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way that we at the Core to Pratsar Foundation, like the vocabulary that we use, I mentioned one concept, which is enter the forest.
Yes.
And we use objects, we use pictures, but we're very big on using objects that help one to enter the forest
Yes.
of not only historical information, but historical information that I say is morally relevant, like morally relevant history. And so, we use that flag, for instance, as a stimulus, the peace flag
Yeah.
created by Cora de Brazza, the pins and so forth. And so there could be objects, there could be questions, but you're emphasizing the importance of framing. Can you say more about what you mean by framing here?
Yeah. So philosophy is all about framing, right? So the frame, what's in the frame? You know, is it a video? Is it a picture? Is it a
Mm,
song? Is it a story? Is it a quote? Is it a title? What is it that we're going to be looking at as part of the philosophy for today? You know, and you, so you would get the children's initial thoughts on it, and then possibly come up with a question, just from the children's initial thoughts from looking at the framing, or whatever you're using for the philosophy that day. So that's what I mean by framing.
mm-hmm. Amazing. And so let's just talk a little bit. We've been going for an hour and 15 minutes, so we're at this point, we're like converging on wrapping things up. But before we
Okay.
do that, can you talk a little bit, like I've used this phrase, philosophical ecosystem, and you don't just do philosophical inquiry. I mean, you mentioned the philosopher's box, but there are other elements like a room and a board and so forth. Can you say a little bit more about the ecosystem that you've created, the elements in that ecosystem
Yeah,
inside the school?
yeah, and the elements within the ecosystem of the school are very important because it's what the children leave with. It's the experiences of philosophy that they leave with. That we have the philosophy board. What happened, what should have happened, what should you do now after a reflexive altercation. That they then go and reflect on that, and then after that, I would put up a Socratic question of what is a friend or what is a fight or what are the consequences of what you do. So that's the board, and the board is now being lived in the yard. Hope
Mm.
you would see that a child will trip another one up because we're all boys school and they're always playing football, and one boy tripping another one, and a boy will over, what happened? Okay, well, what should have happened? What should we do now? Right, shake hands, right, move on, lads, let's go. And it's lovely to see it,
Mm.
see it in actual practice.
Mm.
We have the philosophy room, which is laid out in that sort of horseshoe formation. It has all philosophical quotes all over it. It has the ship of
Mm.
Theseus. It has a mirror, what makes me me. It
Mhm.
has young Plato over it, um, and it just is a lovely room to go in to do philosophy because it never has to be reset. It's just in do philosophy
Mhm.
within the confines of that room, and I want to sort of bring them back to sort of at ancient times. We'll have all those sort of quotes and
Mhm.
pictures and whatnot all around the world, and just make them feel part of philosophy. But when we also have a big poster that's in the hall, and it's a Stoic mindset. It's the four cardinal virtues of Stoicism, and the children leave with these because we use one of our classroom assistants who is a local footballer, a local hero in football. He has scored over 300 goals for Cliftonville, and he's called Joe the Goal Gormley. Now we use him because he espouses the four cardinal virtues of Stoicism, which are courage to enter the field of play, temperance, which is self discipline, don't let your emotions overspill, justice, accept the rules of the game, wisdom, to know when to give your best, but to also know when someone else deserves it more. So our football teams meet below that poster, and we say, well, how are you going to show the four cardinal virtues of Stoicism today? And remember, there's a lot of professional footballers and very famous footballers around the world who don't have that temperance. They certainly don't. So that they would leave with that. They also leave with Aristotle's triangle of happiness, and so it's physical representations they have of these that they leave with, like a card with Joe the Goal on one side and another guy called Francis Turley, who has lived the dream of every child in Holy Cross Boys, is to play for Glasgow Celtic. He's 19, he was a pupil, and there he is playing for Glasgow Celtic. And he's in the middle of the Aristotle's triangle of happiness because at the top it says living with Ariete. And living with Ariete is living with excellence, right? And so to live with excellence, he has to make sure that he has a good diet, that he sleeps well, that he trains hard, that he is always ready and always prepared. And then down in the other corner is accept whatever happens. So, say he gets injured, well, he's got to accept that, and he's got to take responsibility for whatever he does, his actions over in the other corner. So it's accept whatever happens, take responsibility, live with Ariete. Those three things flowing at one time. You have them three things going, then you have what's called eudaimonia, which is flourishing and happiness. Now, Francis Turley's writing about that. So he was living with Ariete, right? He broke onto the first team of Celtic. He was then dropped, so he had to accept that, right? And then he had to take responsibility for getting himself back into that team, training harder, getting a better dad, building himself up, having a growth mindset, so to get, and he's still living with Ariete, he's still accepting whatever happens, he's still taking responsibility. So those three things are just going, 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 and therein is happiness. So the kids live with that, or leave with that, and they also leave with Plato's allegory of the cave. So we take some from everybody, and Socrates' triple filter test. For those of you that don't know what Socrates' triple filter test is it's all about gossip. When you hear gossip, you say to yourself, is it good? Is it useful? Is it true? If you're not getting any ticks in those boxes, let go. Don't even listen. Don't even respond. Change the topic. Change the conversation. So these within the ecosystem, and also we have a wee book because they said, what about religion? You've got the philosophy, your Catholic school. Where does your religion fit in? Where does religion fit into this? And could you answer RT in there? So where does religion fit in? And what I did was Pope Francis, who was our Pope at the time, it's now Pope Leo, he took the Beatitudes down to 6, right? That's right. Can you give me one of the Pope Francis books? Hello? Just on my window. It's on the window. I'm going to get you a Pope Francis book. Where do you see this? You're going to love this, and all your viewers are going to love this too. So what we did was we took the Pope Francis book,
Could we see
right?
it?
Yep.
Okay, you got to turn your camera on.
Camera. So there it is here, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So we
I have
took.
one. You sent
You
one
have
with
one.
Lauren. Yeah, it's not here in
Really?
the room with me, but yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So here's what we did. We took the Beatitudes, and I said to the Primary Sevens, take those Beatitudes and take them down to one word, and then pictorially represent them, so that when I do philosophy with primary ones, this is my framing. This is it here. This is the stimuli.
Amazing.
And that's what I do with the primary ones. We do the Pope Francis's Beatitudes, and we look philosophically in at them. So I still have my Catholic ethos, my Catholic religion, and Catholic principle, and that's what we do. So within the ecosystem, this is exactly where we're at. And the book, this here, big book here, what you have, that's it there. That is the Bible according to Holy Cross Boys. And you already have the wee homework diary as well. So it all connects. And the TTR song, don't forget the TTR song.
Amazing. And
So I want you to listen to that.
oh yeah, we'll definitely put the song on the show resources page. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. So thank you for that explanation of this very, very rich ecosystem. And it's like the making things visual piece, plus the connecting all of the individual, connecting everything to an individual who helps to tell the story. It's so important. We also focus on individuals as ways of getting out story, narrative, discussion, and so forth. And so it's so amazing. Now, of course, as we said in the beginning of the show, you don't just create this ecosystem inside the school. It's the whole community. You talked about the parents, but you also go into other spaces. Holyrood House, for instance, and you go to Zambia. Can you speak about like
Yep.
you use this phrase philosophy roadshow, which is absolutely brilliant. I mean, philosophy roadshow. Please talk about this, how you're taking this ecosystem and booting down the blue gates of other places.
Yeah, you know what? That's so important because that's about the dissemination of great practice. You know, we go to um, other schools with the philosophy roadshow. So the philosophy roadshow is about six children who I would pick out of the classrooms, and we would go up to Bradley Manor, which is the old people's home, and we did actually morality in the law up there. It was amazing. It was phenomenal. God, I get goosebumps thinking about this because I had a 92-year-old conversing with a 10-year-old about morality in the law, right? And she was talking about her during the war she had ration books, and you could only get a wee bit of chocolate, and you got like a round of 2 rounds of bread a week, and you were lucky to get a cup of tea, and the kids were going, "What? You really?" And says, "And yeah, do you know what, boys? We could drink and drive." And they were like, "What do you mean?" He says, "Oh, well, you could drink and drive. You could smoke anywhere. You could smoke on a plane. You could smoke in a hospital. The teachers smoked in the classroom." And they go, "What?" And then, and get this one, the teachers used to punch you. He says, "What?" And she says, "Why? What do you do now?" And she says, "Well, we go to the philosophy wall." And he says, "You go where?" And so they're explaining this philosophy wall. She's explaining that she got her hair pulled, she was punched, she was slapped, and it was terrific. And then she said, "Oh, we didn't have to wear a seatbelt," and I was telling them, so this is where morality came in. So many people were dying because they weren't wearing seatbelts. So many people were dying from passive smoking, so they cut smoking out in places. So morality changed the law, and that's sort of where it sort of all. But my goodness, to hear a 92-year-old and a 10-year-old talking about that was just unbelievable. I just it's one of my highlights. It really, really is. And we also so we brought philosophy to Zambia, and we're going to Zambia in July. We're bringing philosophy back to Zambia in July. We go into a little village called Chibumbo, and we built a school there called United Hearts. The staff did. By employing locals, and we put wells in. We've worked in orphanages with people with HIV and AIDS. So bringing philosophy there was terrific. And I went over with one of my teachers, Jan Marie Reel, who also features in Young Plato. She's the pastoral care teacher who looks after Connor in talking about the shark down the toilet and all, Jaws and all that. That was funny. Um, and also talks to Alfie about all his fears and hopes. And so, there was three teachers. There was Mr. Wallace too, and we went in and we took philosophy. But the beauty of it is that the classroom assistants were also trained in philosophy, so they could go in and teach it as well and do it within the classroom. So that was amazing. They loved that because uh, Zambia is pretty much like you're taught to. The kids didn't really have a voice, and they sort of weren't used to it. They weren't used to sort of going into groups and talking and listening to others and giving feedback and all. And they kept looking at their teachers if this is right. And I'm going, teacher is not a part of this. It's me and you. Let's go. And so they were always looking sort of for affirmation. Should I say this? Should I speak and all this? So that was terrific. Bringing philosophy out to Zambia. Um, and also we started a philosophy parents class, and it was terrific. And we got a local lecturer in, Gianfranco Campolani, and he's Italian, and the philosophy he was doing with the parents was just absolutely amazing. And I sat in every session and just sort of said to the parents, "I'm learning too. I'm a learner. You know, we're all learners. Just because I brought philosophy doesn't mean I am an expert in philosophy. I'm certainly not. I'm always open to learning. So it's good that the parents see that as well, and it makes it sort of it relaxed them. You know, that I wasn't there in judgment. You know, oh, he knows everything, so I said, no, I don't. I certainly don't. And you know, there's been the international outreach was is brilliant. We had a Maltese contingent here for a whole week on Erasmus. They stayed with us a whole week, and they went into class. They saw the philosophy in the class. They visited the teachers. We did a tour of the area. They did a tour of the school. They absolutely loved what we were doing, and I got them to meet all the coordinators to show where philosophy comes into the curriculum, um, and even the pièce de resistance is the mural. People from all over the world come to see the mural. It's amazing. I kid you not. The visitors that we've had to this school because of Young Plato has just been incredible. In fact, we are a big hit in Japan. Massive hit. The Japanese visitors we've had have been absolutely phenomenal. And this here is all on the back of a film I was making when I went home to tell my wife we're making a film in school, and she laughed. And she said, "Ha ha, a film? Yeah, yeah. You're always up to something, aren't you, Kevin?" And I said, "Yeah, this is going to be great, love." And she says, "Ah, of course it is." And then when she went with me to watch it, she just looked at me and went, "Oh my God, that was incredible." And I said, "Well, I did tell you." So there you go. That's uh,
Amazing.
philosophy outside the school.
Yeah. And thank you. For me, the story that I tell myself about you, Kevin, and everything that you're doing there inside the school, in Ardoyne, in other places, booting down the blue gates all over and bringing philosophy to people. It really goes back to this decision, this one decision, when you become principal and you're just like, I'm going to go for it, as you said in the beginning of
Yep.
this conversation. And that decision, because you talked about the power of decisions, and I just wanted to say
Yep.
like that has led to all of this, and doubtless more to come, especially with the book that you will. So yeah, we'll just at this point just do our traditional wrap up. And Randy, any final thoughts, questions, etc.?
Well, I feel like we've covered an immense amount of ground. And for me, like the wrap up piece that I'd like to just zoom in on is like if we could get a one sentence bite size, like if if we were trying to speak to administrators or speak to educators about bringing philosophy into their environments, their schools, their districts, that sort of thing, like what would be the first thing to Google? you know
Young
Dare to
Plato.
think differently. Dare to think differently. You know, there's too many of us subscribe to a curriculum. You know, I didn't ask for permission to do this. I went to my governors and I said, look, listen, there's this idea, there's this vision. Will you support me? They said, certainly. I didn't go to the department. I didn't go to CCMS or anybody to ask for permission. We knew this was a story that needed to be told. We knew this was a story that needed to go out. When CCMS and the department saw this, they loved it. They absolutely loved it, and the education authority as well. They, they, they couldn't say enough great things about it. You know, sometimes when you have a vision and you have something that you're so passionate about and you need to get that out there, don't be afraid. Just go for it. So dare to
Amazing.
think differently, Rhonda.
well, that's so great. So thank you very much. As far as I'm concerned, this is holy work.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, and I've said my piece, which is the importance of a single decision of yours, Kevin, and your continuing decisions, obviously, but it really begins with that one. And thank you so much for bringing healing into the world, and thank you to the producers of Young Plato, Declan McGrath, and NASA, who you discussed earlier. And yes, we look forward to meeting you in person in about a month.
Yep.
We hope to continue this conversation
You
and
get
we
a tour of the
really,
school. You get a tour of the
yeah,
school.
amazing. So you've been listening to Kevin McArevey from Holy Cross Boys School in Ardoyne, Belfast, Northern Ireland. I am Hope Elizabeth May. I was joined by Randy Olson. This is a wrap. Check out the show resources page at virtuesofpeace.com. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Peace, not war, to reconcile. Think about thinking, that's philosophy. The Greek free, for guiding me. In the dance of thought, where wisdom's the key. Plato's the way, that's our legacy. Get success, be kind, we're being wise. Balance emotions, is that your prize? Think fast, think slow. TTR's how we flow. To be with Plato, young or old. Think differently, we can be bold. We filter what's good, what's useful, what's right. From the school of Athens we seek the light. Get success, be kind, we're being wise. Balance emotions, is that your prize? Think fast, think slow. TTR's how we flow. Aristotle's triangle of happiness. It is so right. Happiness and virtue, we don't lose sight. In the realm of thought we find your way. With Seneca's wisdom we live our day. Plato's the way, it's our legacy. Get success, be kind, we're being wise. Balance emotions, is that your price? Think fast, think slow. TTR's how we flow. Fast thinking, slow thinking, it's how we cope. Using reason and logic means we hang on to hope. Peace, not war, to reconcile. Speak, think, listen, it's all worthwhile. That's where we are today. It's our legacy. Get success, be kind, we're being wise. Balance emotions, is that your prize? Think fast, think slow. TTR's how we flow. TTR's how we flow. TTR's how we flow. TTR is how we flow.